I'm Rachel Baribeau. This is SUNDAYSoul, a dose of goodness on Sunday. As you enter into your week, we like to talk to people that are engaging, interesting, people that are running to trouble instead of away from trouble, people that are peacemakers, people that are bringing joy, people that are helping to hold our world together right now. And I am thrilled to be joined right now by Jonathan Tremaine Thomas. He is the founder of Civil Righteousness. He's a lot of things: actor, activist, preacher. I mean, you're a peacemaker. You're so many things. If you were going to call yourself something, just one thing, what would that be, Jonathan?
Son.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah. Talk to us about in a time right now where we desperately need voices of peace, desperately need voices of hope, desperately need voices of love. Yeah. Talk to us about civil righteousness and what you are doing, because I found you while scrolling the internets, right? Okay. And saw some of the work you've been doing at some of these hot spots around the country where people's nerves are frayed and they're raw and understandably so. And I saw the great work you were doing and I was like, I gotta find him. I gotta find them. Who are these people?
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for having me, first of all. And I answered that question, if you could describe yourself in one way. And I said, son, because I think that we're right now seeing not only the identity crisis in our nation, but we're seeing that crisis has become our identity in so many ways. As a Black man in America, I had to wrestle and grapple with, who am I? What world do I fit in? Am I, my teenage years, I hit puberty pretty quick. And so when I was 12, I was head and shoulders above all of my peers, and everybody began defining me right then. They said, oh man, you're going to be you're going to the NBA, you got long legs and big hands. And so automatically, as a Black man, the expectation and the pressure of what people expect me to be, I begin to have to wrestle, even though I didn't have skills. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I wanted to, but I just didn't have it. But yet I felt that external pressure. And then, being a pretty knowledgeable guy, my parents had a high academic standard. So then, I was the only Black kid in academically gifted classes. So then the pressure of, being in that environment and yet wanting to fit in with the bros, and yet I was around nothing but white folks in my classes, so there was that identity struggle. And so when you ask, what is civil righteousness and what we're doing, civil righteousness is a movement where we are pursuing racial reconciliation and restorative justice through spiritual, cultural, and economic renewal. And I said son because there was a spiritual, it was really a spiritual question, right? Like, who am I? Where do I fit? What's my role and my place in the world? And it was when I understood that I was beautifully and wonderfully made, created by God, uniquely by him and for him. And then I found my identity in him. He said, you are my son. I'm defining you beyond what anybody in this world can say about you, or whatever box they put you in or expectations they have for you. You were created for me, by me, and I'm going to use you. And so that's why I said son. And we're trying to further that movement in the earth to see our cities reflect his heart for all people.
What has been the most amazing thing you've seen in the past couple of weeks with our world in a lot of ways at odds? What tell me some of the most beautiful things you've seen through the work that you've been able to do.
Well, one of the things is I think that people who have not been previously open to the realities of the challenges that we faced as a nation, the realities of the existence of racism, the realities of the existence of systemic injustice, those people who have been closed to it are now open and kind of hungry to learn. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, also what I've also seen has been, people entering into serious discussions and self-examination that, we've never really been able to have as a nation. And I think that I'm beginning to see, from the spiritual standpoint, I'm beginning to see God heal wounds that have never been dealt with. And we're seeing some amazing, I think some amazing healing begin to happen at an emotional level, at a spiritual level, at a psychological level. And I think that's really what we've been dealing with in America, is really the post-traumatic stress from human history. It's kind of the hangover of history that God, I think now in the midst of the crisis, is bringing some real tangible opportunities, if we'll seize it rightly, for us to move forward beyond where we've ever been as a nation.
It's interesting. I said to somebody the other day, Mike Tolbert, a former NFL player that I interviewed for a previous edition, I said, my soul, I have hope in my soul, because I feel like the winds of change are upon us.
Yeah.
I truly feel that in the deepest part of my soul, Jonathan. I am on a committee, an anti-hate, anti-racism committee with the Big Ten. And there was a Big Ten athlete that was talking about some of the things they wanted to do in terms of in terms of getting more people to vote and learning about voting and learning about the process. But he said, listen, I think about it. And he said, we have more white allies and more people. This was a young man of color. And he said, we have more white allies and people that are not of color than my grandma had, or my grandma's grandma had. And he said, and I love that he acknowledged that, and there was hope there, right? And so,
Absolutely.
it sounds like you do feel that same way, and that's what our faith rests on, is that hope.
Yeah, I think we have to have hope. And I'll be honest, I think the predominant activist movement right now is not necessarily a movement that is being fueled by hope. It's really being fueled by pain and
Yes.
by rage and by anger. And there is a place for the pain. There's a place for rage. Anger can move people to a point, but anger is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at the historic civil rights movement, it was rooted not just in any hope, but in a biblical hope. You can't, no matter where your faith rests, and we're a pluralistic nation, we have many different faiths, but you cannot have a rights movement without talking about the biblical faith, because it was led by the Black Christian church.
Yes.
And so when we look at that, it's been so long since America has actually seen protest movements that are rooted in that hope, that I'm not sure that we even believe that it's possible, but it's necessary, because hope sustains us. And hope is that thing that says, we shall overcome. The old song that they used to march through the streets and sing, one day we will cross over to the other side, the River Jordan, the Negro spirituals that so compelled the faith of our foremothers and forefathers. And look, I know you're a white woman, but here's the thing, like, this is your inheritance too, And so that's what we say, is that Black history is not just Black folks' history. Black history is American history. And we have to embrace, and just, the sins of the oppressors, those who used to own slaves. What we have to understand is that we have all inherited the pain and the tragedy of the mistakes of our foremothers and forefathers, white, Black, Asian, Latino, it doesn't matter. If you are in this nation today, then we are living in the fruits of what's gone before us. And so we have to all take responsibility for that history, and then say, okay, now how do we move and become what we've never become, what we've never been? And so I am excited, because I do see the tone changing. I see hope beginning to rise. And I feel that there's a real role and responsibility that all of us have to play in seeing that move forward.
It's interesting. I think you make a great point, and that is what I hear sometimes from people not of color, from white people. They'll say, well, I didn't own slaves, or my family did. Why should I feel bad? You're making me feel bad. And I think you described that beautifully, that there's got to be a collective wrapping our arms around this and acknowledgement. And what we talk about in the movement, and I'm changing the narrative, is really hurting with people, is using the 2 ears you've been given and the one mouth and shut it, and genuinely seek to listen and to understand and to carry somebody's burden, right? And you may not be directly responsible for it, but as human beings and brothers and sisters in Christ, whatever it is you believe, we're called to share each other's burdens.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Christ, and the thing is, Jesus Christ was fully innocent, and yet he came into the gap between the fallen nature of man and the desire and the design of God in the kingdom of heaven. And he says, I'm going to take on myself the responsibility for everybody else's mess. Mm-hmm. And so in the Christian faith, if you call yourself a Christian, ooh, you can say, well, my family didn't own slaves. Well, that's not the question. The question is, do you want to be like Jesus?
Oh, that's good.
Jesus was innocent. He was not guilty, yet he said, you know what? I'm guilty. I'll take the punishment. Forgive me. You know, like, I'll take it, you know, through me. You can receive forgiveness. So if you want to be like Jesus, then you have to say, I'm going to stand on this issue in the same place Jesus would stand on the issue. And Jesus would say, I'm guilty. I'll take the punishment so that you can receive mercy, so that you can be free. So are you willing to go, I want them to be free? Because if in their freedom and in their fullness, if justice comes to the person who doesn't look like them or look like me, then justice has come to me, because we're family, we're one, and I'm only as strong as the weakest part. It's like team, right? It's like any team. You can be the greatest athlete, but if there's holes in the team, if there's a skill set that's underdeveloped, then you're not winning a championship. And so it's like, we've got to understand that the championship, there's no finish line until every single part of the team, every single part of the family is functioning at their best.
Yes.
So, yeah, I won't preach now. I am a preacher, but you know.
I mean, you can preach, and I love it. And I love it. That was so good. I early on, when things were starting to happen, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and these things, Breonna Taylor, things have happened way before this. But I remember talking about and looking in my Bible at places where possibly Jesus was righteously angry, right? And I know flipping the tax collector's table was one, but I think in Mark 3:5, he was talking to the Pharisees about performing miracles on the Sabbath, and he said, he actually mentioned being angry. And for me, what I tell my players and people across the country is, I'm not here to tell you not to be angry. I'm not here to tell you how to feel or not to feel. I honor your feelings, but what I am asking you to do is channel your anger for something positive. Use your pain for purpose. How are we going to change your communities, your families, your team? What are we going to do with that pain? Because I guarantee you, an eye for an eye leaves us all blind. It does not. There's no long-lasting joy, Jonathan, or peace in perpetuating violence. And so I'm curious your thoughts on that from a preacher's perspective.
Well, there's righteous anger and there's unrighteous anger. And the problem is, we, in our limited kind of human emotions and perspectives, we don't necessarily possess the ability in our natural state to fully understand or distinguish between righteous and unrighteous anger. Okay. Thankfully, God has given us kind of like a scale that we can measure to be able to determine if it's righteous or unrighteous. And here's the thing: unrighteous anger will fill your mind with visions of vengeance. Like if you're unrighteously angry, you're going to think about that person you're most upset with, that enemy, and you're going to be envisioning how you're going to cuss them out next time you see them, you know, what you're going to physically do to them if you had the chance to. And that's one sign, okay, this is not righteous anger. You know, righteous anger, so the fruits of righteousness, it says, are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, forbearance. I mean, so you have to ask these questions. Is your righteous anger producing more love? Is it causing you to become kinder? Is it causing you to become gentler? And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Are you becoming kinder to your enemy? And that's the hard part, because that's how you know it's supernatural, it's superhuman. Because, and this is what Dr. King talked about that made his movement so powerful, is he trained the oppressed, who had a legitimate reason to get violent, who had a legitimate reason to hate the oppressor. He says, no, we're going to do this the Jesus way. And our nonviolence is going to do violence to the enemy. Like our peace is a weapon. Our love is more powerful than our fist or our guns. And that's hard when our human nature is wanting to strike back, to do the eye for eye thing, right?
Yeah.
But the peaceable fruits of righteousness, I have actually physically seen how going lower, getting softer when the culture is getting louder, getting back, not backing down out of fear, not cowardice, but how the peace of God, the peaceable fruits of righteousness can diffuse a situation. It can take an angry, out of control situation, and in a moment, the peaceable fruits of righteousness can diffuse and disarm your enemies and silence your enemies and actually turn your enemies into allies. And so that's what I believe that's how we have to function in righteous anger, is say, is it producing more life in me, or am I becoming more depressed, more suicidal? And is my mind being tormented? Can I not turn this thing off? Am I having nightmares at night? And people, there's real mental health issues that are emerging right now because of the vitriol in society, and because of the way we're just going at each other on social media and over politics and this and that and the other, all the isms that are causing schisms, and it's actually causing schizophrenia and all kinds of things. And we got to come out of the ism into that place of peaceable fruits of righteousness. And that's what righteous anger will do. It'll produce peace on the inside and the outside.